for another week of BLV NFL Picks. Welcome. I pick every single NFL game of every NFL season. This season has been my worst season, I think, ever through 5 weeks. But we're like the Bengals. Everyone thinks we're washed. Everyone thinks our time has passed, our window is closed, but we won't give up. We're still leading the league in touchdowns. We're still leading the league in EPA. If a couple of results go the other way, we're still on top. So just like the Bengals, I promise to come back with the best effort. Week 6, it's time to get to business. All right, Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly NFL picks, straight up and versus the spread. And if you want to fade me, feel free to fade me. But I will suggest, as always, every season, every week, listen to what I say about the games and not necessarily who I pick, because that's probably the better information anyways. All right, so let's get started, guys. Let's talk about every game this week. Shout out to the members who are in the chat right now. We got Big Al. We got Stephanie. What's up, Stephanie? We got Caesar, the one and only. We got Daniel Berry in the chat. Not Matthew Berry, our one and only Daniel Berry. And also, who else? Jordan, the guitar-loving teen. Sing, of course, in the chat. A lot of people had a tough week last week, but I was also included in that mix. Let's take a look at my record before we get to Thursday night football. Okay, so last week, pretty terrible. I'm not going to lie. We had another awful week. Last week in week 4, we had a bounce back week when we went 11-5 straight up. But last week, we went 6-8. Straight up. We went 1-4 on best bets. We went 5-8-1 versus the spread. Simply not good enough. Execution's got to be better. Judgment's got to be better. Offensive line play, pass rush, special teams, all 3 phases. Got to be better. So that's what we're working on this week. Don't mind the last week versus the spread. That's incorrect. I was just changing the graphic as we went on air. It's actually 5-8-1 was my record versus the spread last week. Okay, but that is my record. That is the update. Okay, so let's get going, man. Let's start with Thursday night football. The San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. I will be at this game tomorrow night. So if you're wondering, where's Mitch live for Thursday night football? I'm at the damn game, bro. So I'm not able to provide commentary. That would be pretty wild if I was in the middle of the game in the stands doing commentary. You wouldn't be able to hear me anyways in Seattle. It's so loud. You wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying anyways. So it wouldn't even matter. But I'll be at the game, so it's going to be pretty exciting. And it's a huge game, in fact, early in this season, as the Niners are sitting at 2-3. The Seahawks are sitting at 3-2, I believe. And this game is essentially for first place in the NFC West. If the Niners win, they're back in first place. If the Seahawks win, they gain the lead, and they gain a pretty deceptively large lead on the San Francisco 49ers. They would be 4-2, and the Niners would be 2-4. So this is especially a huge game for the 49ers in Seattle on Thursday night. One of the best performances, if not the best performance of the season for the Niners, was actually on primetime in week 1 on Monday Night Football. So perhaps they will play better football on primetime. But as we broke down both these teams last week, both of them let us down last week as we picked both these teams to win as the biggest favorites of the week. They disappointed. They both lost. The Niners, I thought, were more of a fluky loss to the Cardinals, as they just were terrible in the red zone, kind of like that Lions versus Buccaneers game where the Lions were 1 for 7 in the red zone and they managed to lose to Tampa Bay. San Francisco was 1 for 6 in the red zone. I think those are the correct numbers. And they also lost their kicker in the fourth quarter, which made them go for a 4th and 23 and not kick a field goal. Instead, they also fumbled the ball in the red zone late in that game that could have gave them a 2-score lead. So the Niners were a bit unfortunate in that game against the Cardinals, while the Seattle Seahawks, I felt, on the other hand, kind of got dominated by a team that I felt was inferior to them previous to last week, and I still feel is not that good of a team in the New York Giants. Although the Giants are maybe a little bit better than we gave them credit for, I feel like that still is not a good loss, especially considering Malik Neighbors was out, and the number one weapon on that team was out, and Daniel Jones was very comfortable. He had a lot of time to throw. Their offensive line and their defensive line in New York dominated Seattle's offensive line and defensive line. Seattle is dealing with some injuries. San Francisco is dealing with some injuries. San Francisco still without Christian McCaffrey. I believe they just put Hufanga back on IR, although I don't know how big of a loss that is. The one big name that is questionable for Thursday night for San Francisco is Charvarius Ward, but it does appear that the rest of the offense will be there. Fred Warner, Kittle, those guys are all going to be playing. For Seattle, they're missing quite a few pieces on defense. They'll be without Byron Murphy once again on the D-line, which has really hurt their run defense. They'll be without Nwosu, who's been out for a majority of the season. He's one of their better pass rushers. And they will actually be without Tariq Woolen, who is one of their best corners. So their corner depth chart is really shaky right now. They weren't able to really cover the New York Giants receivers. Like Darius Slayton had over 100 yards against Trey Brown, I believe, who couldn't cover anybody out there, and he was having a disastrous game. Maybe he plays a little bit better against San Francisco. But I would expect perhaps Brandon Ayuk, who probably was the shining part of that loss to the Cardinals. He actually played his best game by far of the season against Arizona last week. Maybe Brandon Ayuk could have a huge game against Seattle on primetime, maybe even a little bit of Jawan Jennings. The Niners, they have to figure out how to close these games in the fourth quarter. Jake Moody was put on IR, their kicker, so they're going to have to find a new kicker for this week on a short week and address that quickly, but at least they'll have a kicker, not their punter kicking the ball. And what else we got? Seattle, their offensive line has been tragic in certain games, especially against the Giants. That is probably the deciding factor in this game. If the Niners are able to create pressure and get pressure with a 4-man rush, that is probably going to give them the edge in this game. Seattle, can they get pressure on San Francisco? Can Mike McDonald pull out that Ravens game plan from last year and replicate it with much worse personnel in Seattle? It feels like Seattle's defense started off the season not bad. They looked decent, but they haven't been able to hold that up, probably because of the injuries that they've had to some of their players. But once again, they are injured here, and they're injured on all 3 levels of their defense pretty much. So yeah, I mean, I think San Francisco is still the better team by quite a wide margin. San Francisco's won the last 5 matchups in this series, and it is a new twist because there's a new coach involved here for Seattle that did bring a loss to the 49ers last season. So there's a new twist there. But I just feel like the line of scrimmage for the Seattle Seahawks is at such a disadvantage in this game against the Niners pass rush, Nick Bosa, and then also against the run game of the 49ers. So I think the 49ers will have a run game to operate with. I don't think Seattle will be able to cover the 49ers that well because Tariq Woolen is out, and they really struggle at that third cornerback spot. And I also think this is just a huge kind of spot for the Niners. If Seattle loses, they're 3-3. Life moves on, life goes on. But if the Niners lose, they're 2-4 and they've dropped 3 games in the division. So to me, it just feels like with all the different injuries, with the matchup, unless Geno Smith plays superhuman football here, which perhaps that could happen, they could win in a shootout. But I don't necessarily think that will be the case because I think Seattle has struggled against San Francisco offensively even last year. So Geno has struggled against the 49ers. So unless Geno is just able to play like he did against the Lions, maybe they have a shot to win this game. It is in Seattle, but there isn't expected to be rain. I was thinking that could be an avenue for Seattle to win this game if Purdy is affected by the weather, but it's sunny right now in Vancouver. It's going to be sunny tomorrow in Seattle, thankfully, because I don't want to sit there and watch a game in the rain at night. But so Yeah, I just think San Francisco is a much better team, and they've got a good matchup here in a must-win game. So I'm going to take San Francisco to win this game, guys. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. I'm not sure who disliked the video, but I appreciate you as well. Gronk spike the like button. That's our first game on Thursday night. Let's break it down on Outlier. Shout out to Outlier, who continues to give us some quality information week after week here on the picks videos. We've got public betting splits. 77% of the bets on the money line is on the 49ers. 68% of the money is on the 49ers. For the spread, 62% of the bets on the Niners, 76% of the money on the Niners. So pretty much bets and money, and more so the money on the spread for the Niners, but a little bit more money on the Seahawks on the money line, which I guess would make some sense. Although, if you're getting the hook, I think Seattle makes more sense. If you think Seattle is going to be in this game, getting the hook is pretty crucial in my opinion. The over, 73% of the bets and 75% of the money. The over is sitting at 49.5, which is a very high number. San Francisco's defense, I do think, is a little overrated, but I don't necessarily know if Seattle, like I said, can really attack it all that effectively given history in this matchup, especially last year when I didn't feel San Francisco's defense was all that good either. I think the determining factor for Seattle's offense could be whether or not they're able to run the ball. If they're able to run the ball in this game, that could maybe allow San Francisco's offense to sit on the bench and drink their Gatorade while Seattle is able to control the game. But Seattle's run game has been overall very spotty. I don't know if it's very consistent. Last week, it was pretty bad against the Giants. They weren't really able to run the ball against the Giants, a team that's not been good against the run. And they were very good against Detroit because Kenneth Walker just had a superhuman performance. So I'm not sure what Kenneth Walker and what Seattle running game we're going to get. And you really look at these two teams, and I'm just continuing to go on about this game, and I know I'm going long on this game, but that's why you're here, guys. You're here for the in-depth information. You're here for the in-depth breakdowns. If my picks are shit, then at least I give you in-depth breakdowns, right? And the reasons behind it. Now, when you look at these two teams, I think Seattle, I may be overrated at the start of the year because you look at their results, and they've kind of like, They beat the Patriots, and they honestly should have lost. They beat Bo Nix in week 1 at home, a rookie quarterback, and it wasn't super convincing in the end, although I thought the score was deceptive. I thought Seattle was up by 2 scores for a majority of the game. They lost to the Giants at home, which I don't think is a great look. And what else happened? They lost to Detroit and were never really in control of the game, although there were a lot of injuries there. And what else? What was their other result? I can't even remember. But Seattle has not played great teams and has not been convincing. San Francisco has mostly not played great teams, but at least in their losses, they were leading in the games by multiple scores. So I just feel like San Francisco's fixes are a little bit easier than Seattle's. So that's going to finish off Thursday night. Let's move to Sunday, the London game. Before we get to this game, Chicago favored by 2.5 in London against the Jacksonville Jags. Let's talk about the picks we have in the chat. So Stephanie says Niners 30, Seahawks 20. Not a bad score. She would have it going over. Durkant says Niners get stunned again. Seahawks 27-24. Big Al says, what up, Durkant? And Durkant says, what up, Big Al? Big Al says the Seahawks have allowed 71 points and 809 yards over their last 2 games. What else we have? Big Al has the Niners 28-24. San Francisco wins and covers. Singh has the Niners 27-10. A nice win for them. Okay, let's get to the next game. We've got the Chicago Bears -2.5 at Jacksonville. This game could go either way. It's in London. You don't necessarily know how these games are going to go. And the reason I say this game could go either way more than most is because Jacksonville is really, really familiar with playing in this setting. They're very familiar with playing in London, and they understand what the travel's like. They understand what the weekly schedule is like. They understand what the sleep schedule is like. So they are probably easier to adjust to the whole body clock thing and the understanding of whatever they need to do to get ready. And last year, we even saw them beat a superior team in Buffalo in that game. pretty handily as well. So it's hard to handicap these games, which is why I would not bet on this game. But I actually think like everything from a football sense tells me Chicago should win. So like it's hard for me to pick this game because I think Chicago has the much better defense. I think Chicago, like Jacksonville's defense is dreadful right now. They can't cover anybody. They're giving up 370 yards to Alec Pierce and Joe Flacco. And the defense of Chicago has been good all year, good all back half of last year. They've got a clear advantage on their defensive line against Jacksonville's offensive line. Chicago, I feel like, has good enough secondary to slow down Brian Thomas, who's been going off week after week, and Christian Kirk. So I feel like Jalen Johnson, those guys can slow down that passing game. And maybe Jacksonville can get a ground game going here, and maybe that's what I'm overlooking because I think Chicago's a little bit more susceptible to the ground game than they are through the air. Tank Bigsby has been very electric lately, and Travis Etienne's also a quality back as well, rushing for about 4.4 yards per carry on the season. Defensively, though, I just can't trust Jacksonville, and I look at it the way that, there's Caleb Williams, who has been up and down and very inconsistent, but Jacksonville likes to play man coverage, and against a rookie quarterback that's very athletic and can use his legs to pick up yards against man coverage if that rush plan is not sound, as well as the fact that Jacksonville, if they're going to put their corners on islands against these Chicago receivers, I feel like DJ Moore could have a massive game and get open and create separation. Keenan Allen is a very good route runner as well. So I feel like Caleb, the game could be simplified. If Jacksonville continues to play the rate of man coverage that they play, it's not going to be very hard for Caleb to go through his reads and decide which matchup he likes the most. So for me, I kind of view it as like Chicago's been better on offense. They've been running the ball. I don't think Jacksonville's pass rush is overwhelming. I think that they do have some good athletes up front, and at times, they're very hard to run the ball on, which maybe could put the rookie quarterback in some awkward positions on 3rd and long and 2nd and long and things like that, because Chicago is very inconsistent running the ball. But if you give DJ Moore constant one-on-ones and you've got a good defense, I feel like simply that is a good matchup for Chicago. Like, that's kind of how I view it. So, I'm going to lean towards Chicago here. I'm going to pick them. I'm going to make them my pick, and I'm going to take them -2.5. But I don't feel good about it just because Jacksonville looked a lot better on offense last week against Indy. I do think they are kind of an underrated overall team because I think their offense is competent. It's just that their defense is a disaster. And I actually think Jacksonville's played some really good teams while Chicago has played some really bad teams. And I think that has changed our perspective. Like, Chicago should have probably lost to the Rams. They managed to win, but they were kind of fluky. They lost to the Colts with Anthony Richardson, right? So, I mean, the Bears are not a great team either, but at least they have the better defense. I think defense will travel here. I'm not certain Jacksonville's will travel that well. So I'll take Chicago -2.5 to win the game in this London game. Will you guys be awake for this one? Will you guys be watching this game? Let me know in the chat. Stephanie's got the Bears 30, Jaguars 27. Big Al has got the Bears 23, Jaguars 17. Big Al says, if I were a betting man, I would not bet the international games. Durkant says, I genuinely don't know. The London thing is valid, but Jacksonville is awful. 50-50, I lean Bears 22-16 because of their defense. So that's pretty much what I said. Now, Big Al says, it's nice how you break down every matchup. Most channels won't go in depth like you do, and that's why you're here on the Bottom Line View, because we break down games. We don't just say, oh, they've got Caleb Williams. I like Caleb Williams. I pick Bears. Nah, that's why even if I'm wrong, at least I give you information you can utilize and you can use as a weapon for future, games and future previews. So, yeah, okay. Let's go. Let's go Bears. All right. Next up, we've got the Houston Texans at the New England Patriots. The game of the week. The Patriots. Hold on a second. No.
It's gonna be me.
The New England Patriots are at home. They're 7-point dogs. And the Messiah is starting. Drake May is starting. The Patriots are going to be fired up. The Patriots are going to be in this football game. Take it. It's a headline. It's going to be a game, and it's going to be...
It's gonna be me.
The New England Patriots are going to keep this close. I don't know if they're going to win. But it's going to be close. I'm going to take the points with the Patriots. Why? No Nico Collins for the Texans. I think the Texans' offense is going to struggle a little bit in this game because the Texans can't run the ball at all. Really at all. And the Patriots are not great at stopping the run this year because they don't have Christian Barmore and Jawan Bentley, and that's like a huge part of their run defense in personnel. But it doesn't matter. They're playing the Texans. Secondly, the Texans' offensive line is playing on the road, and they have been a disaster all year in terms of penalties and negative plays. I am not a fan of Bobby Slowick right now. I think he's extremely overrated. He calls way too many runs, and I feel like his play calling's been really bad. And CJ Stroud's had to overcompensate for it and be able to overcome it constantly. And without his big-time weapon, probably the best receiver in football right now, who's leading the NFL in receiving yards by like 70 yards, you now have to shift your attention to Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. And I don't know if anybody's been watching the Patriots. I hope you have not been watching the Patriots. But there's a guy on the Patriots who is really good. I know. We at least have one really good player, and his name is Christian Gonzalez. So whoever Christian Gonzalez is covering is not going to get the ball. If it's Stephon Diggs, if it's Tank Dell, they're both going to get locked up. It doesn't matter, okay? This guy is running one-on-one with Tyreek Hill. Nobody else does that. Nobody else does that. Run one-on-one with Tyreek Hill with no safety help. Christian Gonzalez does that, all right? Now, the Patriots, I think, can also get a little bit of pressure because the Texans' O-line is pretty spotty overall. Defensively, I do think that the Texans should be able to overwhelm the Patriots, but there's the wild card of Drake May.
It's gonna be me.
And Drake May is more athletic. Drake May is a better player. Drake May is a faster-minded player. He's got a quicker release. Drake May has got a more powerful arm. Drake May is a more explosive thrower of the football. Drake May is just a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. He just is. The Patriots' run game is decent. I know Ramondre Stevenson's a little bit beat up, which would hurt. But I think I think the Texans secondary, their defense overall has been good. I still have my questions about the Texans secondary. I think May can maybe hit one or two big plays here. I feel like Demario Douglas could have a nice game from the slot against this defense. I don't think anyone can really take him one-on-one in that position. Maybe even a little Hunter Henry action in this game. I think the Patriots kind of match up decent with this team. Outside of the Texans pass rush, I think the Patriots match up all right with the Texans, and it's in New England. So, yeah, obviously you're going to take CJ Stroud and you're going to take Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And the Texans are a good team. They're 4-1, but I definitely have felt like the Texans have been underwhelming. They have not been good against the spread this year. They have not won a lot of games by margin. And New England is now getting an incredibly big boost with Drake May at quarterback because now the team's going to be fired up to play. So I'm going to take the Pats to cover, the Texans to win in this game in New England. Next up, we've got the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. This spread has been Colts -1, Titans -1. It's kind of gone back and forth. Tennessee is at home for this game, and I'm not sure who's playing quarterback for the Colts. It could be Anthony Richardson. It should be Anthony Richardson if he's healthy, because that's what Shane Steichen said. If Anthony Richardson is healthy, then he's the quarterback. But we don't know if that's the case. We don't know if Anthony Richardson is healthy. So yeah. Now, if Joe Flacco is playing, it scares me because Joe Flacco is really good. I'm not even saying that to be kind of funny. Joe Flacco is actually really good. He's really good. I don't know how many times Joe Flacco has to throw for 300 yards for teams to recognize that Joe Flacco is really good at football. Anthony Richardson, on the other hand, is really freaking terrible at football. And the other thing is, Will Levis is a jabroni. Like, I cannot count on Will Levis. He throws the ball. He's probably going to make like 4 incredible throws against the Colts secondary, which is like worse than the local high school. But he's also probably going to throw the ball directly to the Colts on like 2 or 3 plays that could change this game. I also think the Titans can run the ball here with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Their run game overall has been a little underrated. They were able to really run the ball against Miami, and I think the Colts are equally as bad against the run. They should be able to run the ball here, which at least takes the ball out of the hands of Will Levis. If Anthony Richardson plays, this becomes almost a best bet for Tennessee, -1. If Joe Flacco plays, I would stay away from the bet, but I still lean towards Tennessee because I think Tennessee, look, like they're a better roster. They're a better team. They're at home. Tennessee, what does Will Levis do well? He actually throws the ball down the field for explosive chunks well. That's what Trevor Lawrence did last week with an equally as bad offensive line, and Trevor Lawrence has been equally as bad as Will Levis. Like, no denying it. He's been terrible. So you look at the Titans receivers, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. They've got enough options to get down the field and make some plays down the field as well and throw the ball a little bit. And like I said, I think Pollard and Spears can run the ball and balance it out. And Tennessee's defense is legit. Tennessee's defense is really good. I think it's one of the 10 best defenses in the league, despite playing the most of any defense in the NFL. Jeff Simmons should be back as well to help penetrate a beat-up offensive line of the Colts. No Michael Pittman, which is a massive loss for Indianapolis at wide receiver. Alec Pierce has been phenomenal. Josh Downs has been really good. But without Michael Pittman, that's definitely going to hurt. And Jonathan Taylor could also be out. So that's 2 of their biggest playmakers potentially out of this game for the Colts. So I'm going to take the Titans regardless of quarterback, and that's going to be my official pick. But at the same time, if Joe Flacco plays, I probably wouldn't put money on the Titans just because Flacco has been so good lately, and he's such a difference maker for this team compared to Anthony Richardson, who can't complete 50% of his passes. Richardson literally can't complete passes, while Joe Flacco can complete passes. So it's a huge difference maker in terms of the quarterback. Tennessee -1, Tennessee to win, Tennessee to cover is the pick. All right. Let's take a look at Outlier for this game to see where the money's at. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover the last couple games, but that's okay. We'll skip those. Let's get to I'm actually curious about this one to see where the money is at. So the Colts, 83% of the bets, 83% of the money on the money line. For the spread, 89% of the bets for the Colts, and 93% of the money on the Colts. Wow, that's interesting. It's very interesting. The over, 89%. The total is 43.5. And 82% of the money is also on the over as I take a sip of my water. So Colts getting a lot of action, over getting a lot of action, money and bets. Let's move on to our next game. Stephanie has Titans 31-21. Titans 24-21 for Big Al. All right, Stephanie's joining the crew. Durkant's got 27-20. Flacco comes in at half and leads a comeback. Brandon says could be 38-35. Colts have been giving up career-high numbers to everyone who plays them, which is why I have some sort of confidence in Will Levis. Singh's got Colts 20-13. Stephanie had the Texans 24-17. Big Al's got the Texans 21-13. Durkant says Drake May shows some signs, but Texans overwhelmed 26-17. Everyone's on the Texans. Take the Pats, baby. Take the Pats all the way to the bank. Let's go. Next one. Who do we have next? Is that the right one? Yep. All right. Cleveland Browns. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. We currently have 77 people in the chat, only 23 likes. Let's get those likes up, guys. It helps other people find this video. Appreciate you. It's absolutely free. Like the video. Okay, Cleveland at Philadelphia. I'm not going to really dive deep into this game because I try to dive deep into Cleveland Browns games. It really doesn't matter what I say. At the end of the day, bro, the Cleveland Browns are starting Deshaun Watson at the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson sucks. He's terrible. He's awful. He's no good, and nobody likes him. And honestly, the crazy thing about the Browns is that they could go from the most unlikable team in the NFL to the most likable team in the NFL if they simply put in Jameis Winston. Everybody likes Jameis Winston. For ironic or non-ironic reasons. They love Jameis Winston. Just switch the quarterback and instantly your vibes go through the roof. So Kevin Stefanski, strap on your big boy pants, pal. Make a decision. Stop being an absolute, should I say it?
Shut up, bitch. Oh my God.
A.J. Brown is back. Devontae Smith is back. The Eagles are back. They're going to be able to throw the ball against the Browns down the field against man coverage because not even Megatron mixed with a T-Rex mixed with Godzilla mixed with King Kong could cover A.J. Brown in man coverage. So it doesn't matter. All right? Jim Schwartz, he looks washed. I'm taking the Eagles to win, the Eagles to cover, the Eagles bounce back huge. Because Deshaun Watson is going to get destroyed by Jalen Carter, broken in half, and the Eagles are going to win and run away with this game. I don't care if it's -9. I really don't. I really don't. This could be minus 14.5. I'd still take the Eagles, bro, because the Browns, I can't anymore. I'm done. After last week, I'm done. I'm done. I can't. I'm done. They don't want to play anymore. They've given up. They've given up. Where's the outlier information here? I'm interested in if anyone's stupid enough to bet on the Browns. Let's see. Anyone stupid enough? All right, we got the 93% of the bets on the money line on the Eagles and 86% of the money on the Eagles. We have 74% of the bets on the Eagles. We got 62% of the money on the Eagles. The over, 83% of the bets and 52% of the money. So a lot more money is coming in on the under. Money on the Eagles all the way around, although the spread, of course, is going to take some money on Cleveland just because it's a huge number at +9. But, man, can you bet on Deshaun Watson? I say absolutely not, bro. So, yeah. Let's get to the next one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. Saints, underdogs of 3.5. And I'm going to check that real quick because this might have gone up slightly because there was news that Spencer Rattler will be starting at quarterback. Let's just see if the line moved even more. No, it's still at 3.5. So this one feels trappy, though. I don't know why. It feels trappy to me. I may stay away, although I have the urge to bet on the Bucs. And the way that I see this game is the game's in New Orleans. Tampa did beat the Saints in New Orleans last year, by the way, though. The Saints did beat down the Bucs late last year. I will say that. That was in Tampa Bay. New Orleans always plays the Bucs well, especially the Bucs offense. And, you know, with Marshawn Lattimore pretty much brawling Mike Evans every single time they play, it causes fits, literally, for Mike Evans. And usually he gets kicked out of the game by the third quarter. So Mike Evans, you could disqualify him from this game. It'll probably be a decently sized Chris Godwin game. I don't know how well the Bucs will be able to run the ball, but you can run the ball on the Saints. And I think what is probably the tipping point of this game is, can the Saints get some sort of pass rush on Tampa? Because they can't really get a pressure on anybody, it feels like. The Saints really struggle to get pressure on any offense right now. And we saw that against Kansas City. I mean, they couldn't even beat their tackles. So that's embarrassing. I do think the Saints can cover the Bucs, but I don't think that the Saints will be able to move the ball that well. Because when you look at Tampa Bay's defense, they actually have some good corners. Like, Jamel Dean is not great, but he's serviceable to good. And McCollum has been really good this year. The problem with Tampa is that the middle of the field has been awful. If Antoine Winfield is back, that would really help. And that would probably change the whole script of this game because he's arguably the best safety in the league. Kalijah Kancey has been practicing, which changes, again, the Bucs defense because he's a really good player on the interior and a good pass rusher on the interior, which the Bucs desperately need. And with Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey against a bunch of backups on the offensive line of the Saints, I don't see the Saints being able to establish the run and get the ground game going with Alvin Kamara. And I imagine that Spencer Rattler is going to have some suffocated and really desperate pockets throughout this game. So I think Tampa should win and should cover. The game is a divisional game. A big spot for New Orleans, kind of like a rah-rah spot where they have a backup quarterback. Spencer Rattler does have a little bit of talent. Maybe this team has like a Herculean effort at home. Their defense shines. There's possibility for that because of the familiarity in this matchup. But I think the Bucs are the better team. I did not like how the Saints looked on Monday Night Football. I thought they looked terrible. And really, besides Rashid Shaheed, I don't really like anything about this team right now, bro. I guess Alvin Kamara. I guess I'll take Tampa to win, Tampa to cover. But this feels dicey. I don't know why. It feels dicey to me. It feels dicey. I'm picking Tampa, though, because I like Tampa. Let's see where the bets are at, bro. Let's see where the bets are at for this one. Let's turn this. What we got? Where's Tampa? Okay. Here we go. So, 42% of the bets is on New Orleans. 75% of the money is on Tampa. 56% of the spread bets are on Tampa. 69% of the spread money is on Tampa. This number has gone from, I think, the Saints being favored with Derek Carr to the Bucs laying 3.5. The over is taking 86% of the bets and 91% of the money. The total is 41.5. I could low-key see Rattler having some success through the air if they're able to unlock the middle of the field. But the problem with the Saints has been their slot receivers have been bad. Like they don't get a lot of middle of the field passing going. It's all deep shots and play action and run game. Like, they have very little intermediate to short passing game other than dump-offs to Alvin Kamara. So, will they actually be able to attack the weakness of Tampa? I'm not exactly sure they will be able to. The total is really interesting, though, but you're counting on a rookie quarterback to be able to do this against a highly complicated Todd Bowles defense. So, we'll see how that works out for them. Okay. So, that was the Bucs and the Saints. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers. Reading the chat real quick to see the picks. 27-24 Bucs. Durkant has 31-10 Bucs. Big Al 27-24. Stephanie says she likes the Saints. Interesting. And Singh says 35-10 Bucs. Singh just wants every game to be a blowout. Every single game is going to be a blowout, according to Singh. The Cardinals at the Green Bay Packers. Packers favored by 5.5. At home, Lambeau Field. They could get Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson back potentially for this matchup. And I think they want them back because Dontavian Wicks can't catch the damn football, bro. He's got stone for hands. He's open. He runs a good route. He gets separation, and then he just drops the ball. So they definitely want somebody other than him out there at wide receiver. Reed has been phenomenal. Kraft has been really good, actually. The run game has left something to be desired for the Packers. Jacobs has been a little underwhelming, and the O-line has been pretty solid, but Jordan Love has been a bit erratic. Will Jordan Love, the real Jordan Love, please stand up? Please. Because it feels like he has a lot of explosive throws, a lot of explosive plays, but a lot of series that are rather 3 and outs, or they end kind of disappointingly because he misses a throw or something like that. So the Packers offense has been putting up points, has been moving the ball, but largely in chunks and not a lot of consistency. So my question is, can the Cardinals go to Lambeau and establish a running game and kind of control the clock and move the ball a little bit more with some slow pace? Now, the Cardinals' offensive line scares me because they've lost multiple pieces at this point. Right tackle, Jonah Williams, out for the season. Kelvin Beachum, I believe, is his replacement, a veteran tackle of the NFL for a long time. He's solid. He's not a bad player, actually. But they also lost Will Hernandez, who's a really underrated guard. So they've lost multiple starters on the O-line. That hurts, especially against the Packers front that's pretty athletic and pretty good overall, especially if both Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt are playing in this one. James Conner's been phenomenal. Nobody can tackle him with any consistency. Marvin Harrison Jr., I want to see more out of him in terms of like more of a route tree. It feels like he just runs like 3 routes the whole game, and they've limited him to pretty much a perimeter role, and that's it. Trey McBride is still really good, and I think he'll be a tough matchup for the Packers overall because it doesn't feel like they're really matching up McKinney on tight ends as much. They're more so having him lurking around because he just intercepts a pass every game, so he'll probably get another interception here. Probably the best safety in football through the first 5 weeks of the season. The Cardinals' pass rush is not very good. I don't see them getting much pressure. I think it kind of comes down to like, how do the Cardinals move the ball against the Packers? Michael Wilson's also been really solid as well. So it kind of depends on whether or not you think the Cardinals are going to be able to move the ball and score consistently to keep this one close. 5.5 is tricky. Like, I lean towards the Packers, but I could see the Cardinals covering the game. I could see this being like a 28-24 game, but I could also see it being like a 27-20 game where the Packers do cover. I kind of lean towards the Cardinals are not that good. I just think, obviously, divisional opponent with the Niners, but don't forget, they were getting blown out, right? So they had to make a late game comeback. A lot went wrong for the Niners. They fumbled in the red zone. They lost their kicker. So will that happen to the Packers? Probably not. How will Kyler play outdoors, in a Lambeau setting? I'm not sure. What will the health be of the Packers receivers? I'm not sure. So I slightly lean towards Packers minus 5.5. I would probably think this game will be decided by 6 or 7 for the Packers. But I've also been overrating Green Bay, it feels like, all season. So I'm not exactly sure what to think. I might just have to lay off Green Bay as a bet because I feel like I've misjudged this team at times. So I lean towards Green Bay to win, Green Bay to cover, because I think they're more talented. They're the better team. I think the Cardinals' defense is not very good. I think the Cardinals' defense will get ran on, thrown on, exposed. But at the same time, could Kyler make this one interesting? Absolutely. So this is a very difficult game to handicap, in my opinion. So let's take a look at what Outlier has here for this game, because I think this game is definitely pretty interesting from a betting perspective. So 71% of the bets of the money line is on Green Bay, but 82% of the money is on the Cardinals. That's really interesting. 62% of the bets is on Arizona. 38% of the bets on the spread is on Green Bay. So a lot more money and bets coming in on Arizona plus the points. This is actually showing, Outlier is showing only 4.5, which is interesting. So maybe the line has moved since I made the graphic, but I don't think so. At least where I get the number at. So over 72% of the bets, 69% of the money for this game. I would also lean towards the over 47.5, but again, not a low number. So This is a good game. This is a good game. Low key, pretty good game. Will be interesting to watch if Arizona can string together some wins here, because they've been very up and down throughout the season, which I think is a product of their quarterback, by the way. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. They're back off the bye week, and I kind of like the Chargers here. Chargers -2.5 at Denver. I do think Denver has definitely impressed me, and they've definitely been better than I gave them credit for, mostly because their defense has been like, what? Really good for some reason? Where'd this defense come from? Late last season, they weren't, improved, and they were playing well late last season, but this year they've been like a top 10 defense without debate. They've been like the second best team in terms of pressure rate and all this stuff, and their run defense has been solid. So Vance Joseph, low key. If the Broncos make the playoffs, which I don't think they will, but if they make the playoffs, I mean, Vance Joseph probably deserves like some sort of assistant coach honors, or at least in the conversation. I mean, to take this level of talent and make it look this good is pretty impressive. So shout out to him. I do think the Chargers are a better team. I do think that it depends on their health. I'm not exactly sure what their health situation looks like. I'm going to look up their injury report once again, because I was trying to look up their injury report all morning and I couldn't find any information on it. So I'm going to look it up again. Let's see. It looks like maybe they updated it now. So Joey Bosa didn't practice on Wednesday. What else is new? Cameron Dicker is sick. Christian Fulton did not practice. Derwin James probably will be back for this game. What else? Rashawn Slater limited. Denzel Perryman limited. Jasir Taylor did not practice. What is that for? Fibula. Okay. In terms of the Broncos, they have a couple of injuries on the O-line. Center and tackle did not practice, so that's something to look at. So yeah, that doesn't really make me confident about the Chargers, but I do think the Chargers will win, just because, like, maybe it's too simple, but I think the difference between Herbert and Nix is pretty significant. And I think the Broncos have won a majority of their games because Sean Payton has outcoached the other team. And I don't necessarily think he'll just flat out outcoach Jim Harbaugh, especially in situational game states, like just in terms of like, controlling the game. The Chargers make it ugly all the time. The Chargers, they've been really good at managing the game. They could have beat the Chiefs if they were a little bit healthier. If Herbert was a little bit healthier, they could have beat the Chiefs. I mean, that's pretty good considering how the Chiefs looked on Monday night. So I think the Chargers, like, Herbert's a good quarterback. He's good at managing pressure. I don't think he'll turn it over. I've been impressed by Ladd McConkey from the slot. I think J.K. Dobbins has looked pretty good as their running back, and I think they can get a little bit in the ground game going. And the defense for the Chargers has actually been pretty legit all year. I don't think Bo Nix is necessarily going to make a ton of plays. So I lean towards the Chargers to win, the Chargers to cover. I do think they're the better team. It is in Denver, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think it will be close, probably a defensive game. But I lean towards the better quarterback here. And it's really as simple as that. I've been impressed with Denver, but the bye week matters to me. Extra time to prepare, all that sort of stuff. So I'll take the Chargers. Big game in the AFC wildcard race, though, and a big game in the AFC West. If the Broncos win, they're 4-2. And if the Chargers win, they knock the Broncos to 3-3, and they're 3-2. So 64% of the bets on the money line are on the Chargers. 58% of the money is on the Broncos. In terms of the spread, 58% of the bets on Denver, 53% of the money on Denver. In terms of the total, over 90% of the bets and 81% of the money, which makes sense because the total is currently 35.5, which is pretty wild. Like, that's a pretty low number, especially for a Justin Herbert game. That feels very, very low, but I don't know. Chargers have been a low-scoring team all year so far, which pretty obvious why. They don't have a lot of weapons. All right. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button, guys. We're continuing on our Week 6 grind. Let's get to the next one. We've got the Washington Commanders at the Baltimore Ravens. This is for Big Al, the game of the week. Young Jaden Daniels taking on the quarterback that he was compared to coming out of the draft, Lamar Jackson, the current reigning defending MVP of football, along with the king, Derrick Henry, and arguably the oldest running back matchup in football, Austin Eckler on the other side. This is in Baltimore. Baltimore's defense against the pass has been dreadful. Washington's defense in general, I think, is dreadful, although their fans think they're good now because they stopped the awful Deshaun Watson-led Browns offense. So congratulations, a round of applause. Like, my goodness, local high school could do that. But I am going to take the Ravens. I think this is a trap. The Ravens are the better team. The Ravens are at home. Lamar is playing an NFC opponent. We know the splits there. He almost never loses. And again, I think the Ravens probably win by a touchdown to 10 points. I think this is kind of like the fall down to earth game for the Commanders. And Commanders fans are going to hate me for this, but I think this is a trap. I think they're giving us a number at 6.5 where they want us to take it. It's enticing enough to take it. But it reminds me of last year when the Ravens were 6-point favorites against Detroit or Seattle, when everyone was on Detroit or Seattle with the big number, but then Baltimore just slaughtered them. This is what this reminds me of. I think the Commanders are extremely susceptible on defense, especially through the air. I think that the Ravens will be able to run the ball because they can pretty much run the ball on everybody. And I think the Ravens defense can make some stops because I don't think the Commanders passing offense is like the Bengals. I don't think it's rhythm, timing, and precision. I think it's basically deep ball or quick throw. So I think with the Ravens having Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and great tacklers at the second level and third levels of their defense, Marlon Humphrey, I think they can really limit yards after catch, kind of like they did against Buffalo. And I don't necessarily see Daniels being able to escape against these athletic edges of the Ravens. I think the Ravens do a very good job of generally containing quarterbacks in general. So I think this is going to be the toughest game of Jaden Daniels' career so far. And I just think he'll come up a little bit short, and the Ravens will make one or two stops more than the Commanders will. So I think this could be like a 34-20 for Baltimore. I don't think it will be embarrassing. I don't think it will be necessarily a blowout, but I do think the Ravens will cover, and I do think the Ravens will win. I think Lamar keeps the train going here against another easy defense to perform against. So Baltimore wins, Baltimore covers, and Derrick Henry probably once again has a huge game. All right. Not a lot there. Should be a fun game, though. Big Al's got the Ravens 31, Commanders 28. Rob says Ravens defense is too sus. Commanders for the upset. Durkan says Lamar beats his third MVP candidate in a row. Ravens win 31-27. So all the rest of the chat sees it as a closer game than I do. Singh's got the Ravens 28-24. Speaking on the Broncos and Chargers, Big Al's got the Chargers 20-19. And Durkan says, I'm going to take the Chargers because I just refuse to believe Denver starts 6-2. Look at their next 3 games. Singh also has the Chargers 19-16. So we're all on the Chargers in the chat as well. That's not good. Okay. Gronk spiked the like button, guys. Let's get to the next game. Next up, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Steelers, favored by a field goal. I like the Steelers here. This is a Steelers rah-rah spot for Mike Tomlin. Loss in primetime at home against the Dallas Cowboys, in which the defense let them down late in the game. That typically does not happen. The Raiders look awful. They're switching quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew to Aiden O'Connell. I don't think that matters. If anything, I think that's a downgrade. The Raiders' O-line has been suspect. The Raiders' run game has been awful. The Raiders don't have Devontae Adams. I don't really see how the Steelers' defense gets ran on or thrown on at a consistent rate. So I don't see the Raiders scoring more than like 17 points. And then the Steelers, on the other hand, I think the Raiders defense, now without Christian Wilkins, is extremely susceptible to the run. I think that you can run on them with Najee and Justin Fields. I'd like to see more Justin Fields run incorporated in this game. Fields had a shaky game against Dallas, but I also think that Pickens could have a good game against the Raiders. Like, I don't really see a guy on their team that can lock him down at the same rate that maybe Trayvon Diggs did in the previous matchup. I've been a little frustrated with their offense. Maybe it's time for Russell Wilson, if this game doesn't go well offensively, to unlock more of that passing game. But I think the Steelers are a much better team than the Raiders at this current point in time. I like the Raiders. I like cheering for them, but they're just not. I don't think they're on the same level of the Steelers. And I don't particularly think the Steelers are great, but their defense is really good. And I think they have a bounce back here. So I think the Steelers win this game. I think the Steelers cover. I think they win by 7 to 10 points, probably in that sort of range. Let's take a look at the outlier betting public. 92% of the bets on the money line on Pittsburgh. 92% of the money on Pittsburgh. 70% of the spread bets on Pittsburgh. 75% of the money on Pittsburgh. 92% of the bets on the over, while 70% of the money is on the over 36.5. I don't know if I would ever bet an over in a Steelers game, but you can do with your money what you wish. I would lean towards Pittsburgh -3 being the bet in this game. And it may appear on the best bets. We will find out soon. Okay. Next up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Falcons -6 on the road at Carolina. Carolina is weird, man. Like, their defense is obviously awful, but you feel like they should be more competitive in some of these games than they are, and they just get their absolute asses kicked. So I don't really know what to do. Like, I kind of want to feel this is a divisional game, and it's in Carolina, and it's Atlanta. They do have 10 days rest, but they're going on the road to Carolina, and you could see how Carolina maybe could make this a shootout and kind of go toe-to-toe with the Falcons and cover this spread. Like, that definitely feels like it could happen. But the Falcons were really clicking in that game against Tampa on offense, and Carolina's defense is so bad. Like, so bad. I mean, awful. They can't stop anything. The run, the pass, anything, man. Like, Darnell Mooney looks great. Drake London looks good. The Falcons can protect Cousins. The Panthers don't have a pass rush. Like, I'm taking the Falcons to win for sure. I think the question is kind of coming down to, like, do I take the Panthers to cover? And my initial lean is yes, but like, their defense is so bad. Like, they can't stop anything. They couldn't stop Caleb Williams, who looked awful. Like, Carolina's defense is terrible. I don't see an upset here. I just think the Falcons will do whatever they please on offense. Unless the Panthers win like 34-31, you know what I mean? Like, I guess that's possible, but Carolina is bad, really bad. Let's take a look at what the betting says. I'm going to take the Falcons, bro. I'm going to take the Falcons to win. I'm going to take the Falcons to not cover. I'll take Carolina +6. Let's see. Okay, so 94% of the bets on the Falcons on the money line, 94% of the money on the Falcons money line, 93% of the bets on the spread, which is crazy high amount, 94% of the money on the spread as well for the Falcons. That's insane. 68% of the bets on the over, 66% of the money on the over. I do agree with the over 46.5. I would agree with that. Carolina, though, hopefully they can cover, man. 6.5. Jeez. Cover the damn spread, Andy Dalton. I believe in you. You're not Bryce Young. I believe in you. Come on, brother. Okay. So that was the Panthers at home against the Falcons. Next up, the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys coming off a Sunday night primetime game, which weirdly gives me more confidence that Detroit's going to win this game. I don't know why, but I feel like Dallas kind of won a game last week that I didn't really expect them to win. Are they going to do that twice in a row? I don't know. Maybe I'm underrating Dallas. You guys tell me. But Dallas, I think, will be a little bit exposed on defense this week because they don't have Micah Parsons. They don't have DeMarcus Lawrence. Their secondary, to me, is extremely susceptible through the air. Jared Goff played really good against Seattle. It was a beat-up Seahawks defense, but really well, and he's once again in a dome. The Lions do have a little bit of a revenge angle here due to the whole ref screwing them in the last time they played Dallas game, where they had the illegal offensive lineman, although he reported eligible, and then they said he was not eligible and all this stuff, right? Now this could be a shootout. You could see a world where Dak drops back and throws 40 times for 350 yards, and Detroit secondary is a bit suspect, but really it's CeeDee Lamb and it's Jake Ferguson and a little bit of Jalen Tolbert. I don't necessarily think this is as challenging of a matchup from a receiver standpoint as Seattle is, not by a long shot. I think Detroit will be able to stop the Dallas Cowboy running game pretty well, and Detroit does have a decent pass rush. Aiden Hutchinson has been terrorizing people all year. And then on the other side, I think Detroit will be able to run the ball pretty effectively, kind of control the clock. And I think St. Brown could be a huge problem in this game. Jamison Williams, his speed could also be a problem for Dallas, as their corners are not particularly fast. So I like Detroit. I think Detroit's the better team. I think Detroit is more healthy. And without Parsons and Lawrence, I just think it's going to be very hard for Dallas to get stops. I really do. So I like Detroit minus the field goal on the road. I think they'll win. I think they'll prove that Dallas is kind of a mid-tier team. I think they're average. And as much as Dak has been impressing me, and Dak, I think, is a good quarterback, and again, breath of fresh air for me in terms of the way he plays the game right now is something we don't see from very many quarterbacks. I don't know. This is not the most talented Dallas team. I don't think they're nearly as talented as they were last year when they nearly lost to Detroit. They probably should have lost to Detroit, but they also, beat Detroit. So I'm going to take Detroit here because of their offense, because of their run game, because of their line of scrimmage play and their line of scrimmage advantage on, in my opinion, both sides of the football. So let's see what Outlier has to say about this matchup. Next up, we've got 79% of the bets on Detroit on the money line, 81% of the money, 63% of the bets on the spread on Detroit, 66% of the money on Detroit, 75% of the bets on the over, 78% of the money on the over. The over is 52.5. Maybe just out of principle, I'd have to take the under because that's an insanely high number. But man, is it warranted? Probably. Also, a lot of the money and the bets are on Detroit money line, spread, all of it. So Caesar says, I wouldn't say it's a letdown. It's just Cowboys meeting competition. I do agree. I mean, last week, I think their defense looked a lot better than they are because they played Justin Fields and a pretty limited Steeler offense, which allowed them to hang in the game and ultimately have a couple key drives from Dak Prescott in that offense and CeeDee Lamb. But I think Detroit will probably try to take away CeeDee Lamb, double him as much as possible, force the other receivers to beat them. Detroit does like to play man, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing against Dallas, because if you do double CD, it's forcing Jalen Tolbert to beat man coverage more consistently. And I think you'd take on that battle. So, yeah. Gronk spiked the like button, guys. We're finishing up with our last two games. Primetime Sunday night, Monday night football. Let's go. Sunday night football. Bengals at the Giants. I have the teams reversed for some reason, but it is Bengals at the Giants. Bengals -3.5. There are some key injuries for the Giants. We don't necessarily know if Malik Neighbors is playing yet because he does still have a concussion and he's still in concussion protocol. Kayvon Thibodeau has been placed on IR. And those are the primary ones, I believe. Devin Singletary, I think, also. For the Bengals, they're getting Sheldon Rankins back for this game, which is dramatic because we saw how much of a difference it made just having BJ Hill back against the Ravens against the run. And I thought the Bengals defense actually played better than the score indicated because they were up 2 scores twice in the game against the Ravens. And if not for some Zach Taylor poor game management at the end where they run the ball 3 straight times for some reason, they probably win the game. So I think the Bengals, you look at their results, they easily could be 4-1. They easily could be 5-0. They're a much better team than their record indicates because Joe Burrow is currently playing like the best quarterback in the league. He's leading the NFL in EPA, leading the NFL in passing touchdowns, leading the NFL in passer rating. This is one of the best offenses in football. Jamar Chase is one of the best receivers in football. T. Higgins is playing well. Chase Brown could see more action if Zach Moss is out. So I like Tyrone Tracy. I picked him up in every league. I drafted him late in every league. I'm excited to see him potentially start once again. Daniel Jones is deceptively playing pretty darn well, and I thought the Giants played well as a team against the Seahawks. They definitely impressed me, and I wouldn't be shocked if this game was close because the Giants, they've been showing that they have a formula on offense. Their offensive line is playing well. They're protecting Daniel well. And when he has confidence and he's running around and he's scrambling and he's making plays that way, that definitely helps. But Daniel Jones in primetime has been terrible throughout his career. I don't even know if he's ever won a game in primetime. I can't even recall. But Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson have been an awesome duo. Darius Slayton continues to make plays, and the Bengals do have a beat-up secondary, and they're not very talented back there. So there's maybe another good Daniel Jones game coming. But I would see the Bengals throwing up 30 once again. So the question will be, can the Giants score in this game consistently enough? And I do think their run game will be a little bit inconsistent because I think if the Bengals do have their full 4 defensive linemen with Rankins in there and Hill, Hendrickson, and Hubbard played well against the Ravens, I thought, then I think the run game for the Giants will be a little bit less than last week. The Seahawks also, remember, beat up defense, right? So they were able to take advantage of that. And the Seahawks have a dreadful offensive line, which the Giants were able to take advantage of. I think the Bengals' offensive line is legit. I think it's pretty good. So I don't think pressure on, especially without Kayvon Thibodeau, will be as substantial on Burrow. But this is in New York, and that kind of opens up the door for a home team as an underdog with a good coach, potentially pulling off an upset the way they're playing. So I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I just think the Bengals, the way they're playing against the teams they've been playing, I think they'll pull this one out because, they've gone down to the wire and they could have beat the Ravens, they could have beat the Chiefs, and they could have beat the Commanders. All 3 teams are looking pretty good. And I just think they need to win this game. So I'm going to take the Bengals because I trust Joe Burrow over Daniel Jones in a big game. And I think they've got more weapons. I think Jamar Chase is pretty much unstoppable. And I think that the defense will stop the run well enough to force Daniel Jones to beat them. And ultimately, I think that will be good enough for them to win. So I'm going to take the Bengals to win, the Bengals to cover. But it could be close. It could be close. It could be a really low-key good game. I wouldn't be shocked. The Bengals have put on some pretty good games this year. Against the Ravens, against the Commanders. Those games were very watchable. The Chiefs game was even very watchable. So, yeah, it could be a lot of fun because their defense has yet to really show up. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's check out what OUTLIER has for the betting here. So 95% of the bets are on the Bengals on the money line. 95% of the money is on the Bengals on the money line. 86% of the bets on the spread for the Bengals. 92% of the money on the spread for the Bengals. 70% of the bets on the over. 66% of the money is on the over. The total is currently 47.5, which perhaps if you think the Giants are going to be in this game, I think betting the over makes sense at 47.5. Stephanie has the Bengals in a blowout, 34-14. Jerkant says Giants end Cincy season 28-24. Big Al has the Bengals 31-14. Wow. And Singh has the Bengals 27-23. I will say, if the Bengals do blow the Giants out like Big Al and Stephanie think, I think that would be a big statement because like we just said, I mean, the Giants have not been playing bad football. They were playing well against Dallas. They played well against Seattle. So I do think if they did blow them out for whatever reason, I think that would definitely turn the tide perhaps for their season. Now, let's get to the final game, which is Monday Night Football, the thumbnail. The New York Jets at home. Bills favored by 2.5, depending on where you're betting, and perhaps this spread will move. The Bills are very beat up right now. Their entire roster, their entire team is extremely injured. Taking a look at the injury report real quick. The Jets also just fired their coach, which is very odd. And they do appear to be in a bit of shambles right now. But usually when you fire your coach, there's actually a energy that you see for your team. Like there's actually a bit of a boost that happens with teams. And some people bet games just simply based on the fact that they fired their coach, because you see like a new coach sort of attention to the game. This is also a big game for the Jets. They love playing against this Bills team and Josh Allen, and they love taking it to this team. And the Jets match up well with the Bills. They have matched up well in recent games against the Bills. They beat them in New York on Monday night when Aaron Rodgers went down on that huge game last year on Monday Night Football. And this is Monday Night Football return to the scene of the crime for Aaron Rodgers. Now, injury update. Khalil Shakir is a big one. Will Khalil Shakir play? He did not play in Week 5. He did not practice on Wednesday. Curtis Samuel did not practice on Wednesday. Josh Allen also potentially dealing with an injury, but he should be okay. Taylor Rapp has cleared concussion protocol, so he could be back at safety. Austin Johnson, limited. He could be in there. Teron Johnson should be playing for the Bills. Ed Oliver did not practice on Wednesday. So if Ed Oliver is out and Shakir and Curtis Samuel could be out, that's very scary for the Bills because their receivers have looked awful, especially when Khalil Shakir has not been out there and has not been the guy separating and getting open. They have looked terrible. So I actually think the Jets are the play. I think the Jets are the lean. I will not be betting this game because there's no way I'm going to bet the catastrophic Jets team with real money to beat Josh Allen. And potentially, Josh Allen's never lost 3 games in a row in his entire career. So it's not exactly a good bet. But I do think the Jets match up well with the Bills. And I'm going to lean into that. So I think that Jets could run the ball pretty well with Breece Hall and Allen on the ground. I think that Garrett Wilson can make some plays on the outside. And I think Aaron Rodgers has probably heard a lot about this week and the drama. And I think he wants to prove people wrong. And this atmosphere is going to be crazy in New York. I mean, crazy. It's going to be so hype. And this is a huge game. So I'm going to take the Jets here. I'm going to take the Jets plus the points. I'm going to take the Jets to win. I'm not confident about it, but I like the way the Jets defense played against the Vikings. I actually thought the Jets could have beat the Vikings and looked like a legitimate threat to beat the Vikings. So not a lot of teams have shown that this year. So I think the Jets are actually better than people think. And the Bills, I'm not saying they're overrated, but they have not played well the last couple of games. So I'll take the Jets to win, the Jets to cover. The Angry Canadian says, my friend and I are gonna watch Terrifier 3, and I have an exam next Wednesday. I work 2 jobs and do school. What's up, Angry Canadian? Thanks for joining. I hope you're a little bit happier, Angry Canadian. Singh says, bye, Mitch. Thanks, Singh. Rob says, Bills 9-6. Stephanie says, Bills 20-17. And Big Al says, Bills 24, Jets 16. Buffalo wins and covers. Ooh, okay. Big Al's going with the Bills. Durkant's going with the Jets 24-16. The opposite of Big Al's score. Caesar says, I have to say Bengals may get sort of a blowout win, one that inflates their value, 41-20. It may look insane, but it's a one-time deal. All right. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Those are my picks for week number 6. Hopefully we get back on track with some dubs this week. Best bets will be out Thursday morning, and for members, it will be out late tonight. So if you are a YouTube member, you get those best bets early on the channel, so sign up to become a member. Also, my Patreon, you can get all of my bets every week. That's $10 a month, link in the description. If you want to support me just generally as a creator, you can go there as well. There's a $3 tier, a $5 tier, a $10 tier, Patreon. And check out OUTLIER, guys. Link is in the description if you want to see all the information and the great stuff that they bring to the table to help you bet games. You can definitely check out OUTLIER there. Link in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Don't forget to Gronk Spike the like button and subscribe for weekly NFL picks. It's Mitch. Peace.